are the true Christians to do to be that attractive, to get favor from God, and to win the world to Jesus Christ? And let me say this to my young friends, young members, boys and girls, young adults. You are not to be herders and schools of fish following everybody else. Everybody ought to be flocking to you, following you. You ought to be the circle of influence. They ought to want to wear what you wear. You ought not want to wear what they wear. You ought not want to drive what they drive. No, make them drive what you drive. They ought to want to live where you live. They ought to want to be like Mike. They ought to want to be just like you. But it's the flip side. Do you look like your picture? It's the flip side. The world ought to know who we are. We ought to look like Jesus. We ought to walk like Jesus. We ought to pray like Jesus. We ought to be like Jesus. So